So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are in part 3 of a 4-part series which sort of introduces and explains a little bit of the basics of what we do around here. The first week was called The Thing Itself. And that was about spirit, universe, creator, the absolute, the all that is, whatever you choose to call it, him, her. That doesn't matter, as long as you know there is something. And the second week was called How It Works? Yes, okay. There are 4 of them. And this is the one that we're on today, which is what it does. So we've been moving through this getting familiar or refamiliar with these basic concepts. And a big reason for that is because the more we understand them, the more they work for us, which is really the point of what we're talking about today. So we're immersed in and surrounded by something with a capital S, which knows all and is all. Some of you have probably heard sort of this riddle or this allegory about a fish swimming everywhere, asking every other fish, I hear there's this thing called water, can you tell me where to find it? You ever heard something to that effect? A fish swimming in water, looking for water. And sometimes that's what it feels like for us when we're searching everywhere for this holy grail, this golden answer, this key, this thing that's going to make all the difference. And it turns out that we are surrounded by it, that we're swimming in it. So we are immersed in this something that knows all and is all and offers all, but there's a caveat. The caveat is that we can only have of its infinite offerings what we're willing and able to understand. Actually, what we're willing to know and understand to the point where we embody it. And we talked about that a little bit last week. So, we can go around and talk about all kinds of things, but that's not the same as knowing them. That's not the same as truly understanding them. Not the same as getting them to the point where they're a part of us. They move through our veins. They're part of our breath and every step, every step we take. When they're part of us, something happens. So there's this idea that we're surrounded by the infinite, which knows all and has all, is all, offers all, but because we are free, which comes up a lot in this teaching, it can't give to us what we are not receptive to. So you think, okay, well, in the context of everyday life, what does that mean? It might mean that you have a great need for something, and yet you can't have it until you're open to it. And not just, okay, I acknowledge I'm hungry or thirsty or whatever the case may be. It's a little bit more than that. Apparently, there are 2 components that are required for us to succeed in really opening to this thing. One of them is to recognize our oneness with it. And again, we talked about this a little bit last week. Culturally, historically, the idea of you or me claiming our oneness with that was forbidden. You could get in serious trouble. Maybe they, make it long and painful. But this idea that we are one with it is one of these 2 keys. The other is that we have to be conscious and connected to that idea, but to be consciously connected to it. So it's not enough to say, yeah, I know, I'm one with something great, I'm swimming in it. The other part is we have to say, we know that we know, and connect with it on purpose. So, unity and conscious connection. The fish needs to know that the fish is swimming in it, nearer than his or her breathing, closer than, well, it doesn't have hands and feet, but fins, okay? Nearer than all your fins. That's how close. But the fish has to know that in order to stop looking for it everywhere when it's all around, right? And the other one is to consciously connect. So know that we know. Know that we're one, know that we know. Know that we're one, know that we know. That's part of it. So moving from this idea or this field of all kinds of great ideas and information down into a place of really knowing involves these kinds of steps. There are two parts to this something, and Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching, refers to them as love and law. And oftentimes in our classes, we draw these charts. We draw these charts. But let's just say that love is up there and law is down here, and that results are down here. So you got, what do you know? You got a trinity. You got three parts. Let's say that up here you have a seed, and right here you've got soil, and here are the plants that result. Isn't that convenient? Okay, I didn't even plan on that. So love is this thing that says, I'd love to do that. We can relate to that, right? That thing within us that says, oh, I'd love to do that. And off you go. And before anyone taught you to take your time, research it carefully, consider all the possible outcomes, and plan and whatever, you probably would just go right for it. Didn't matter what time of day it was, what you were wearing, whether you'd had breakfast, lunch, or dinner yet, whether you were going to be late for dinner. When you're a kid, you're just like, oh yeah, and then off you went. Well, that's more of our natural state. So we have this thing in us that is love, that has this urge to express, this urge to become, this urge to embody, to experience itself in a new way that it can only do by means of the fulfillment of this idea. So that's constantly going on. You can think, if you want, that spirit is saying, oh, I can do this, oh, I can do that. And anyone who's open and willing can be part of that experience. It's a partnership. You can have it together, and it's great. So the other part is this thing we call law. And it's not like the law of the land. It's not like the reason you get a parking ticket or a late notice, for an unpaid bill or anything. It's this responsive, mechanical thing, just like the soil. Now, if we were to have some seeds for these specific plants here, and we planted those seeds, these are the plants that would come out of that soil. It wouldn't say, oh no, I'd rather give you a rose or a petunia or whatever. It would give you exactly what you planted, precisely that. Okay, that's how the law part of all of this works. So if we were to plant carrots, we would get carrots instead of these prayer plants. That's how it works. So the law is that part that responds. It's this other part, the two parts of the one whole, that just says yes and produces accordingly all the time. Yes, this is repetition. Why are we repeating it? Because we're out there repeating the co-creation of things we don't want. So we're back in here saying, wait a minute, now how does that go again? Because I want to walk out that door and know it to a greater degree than I did yesterday and improve my experience. Because there's me and what's going on in my life, and there's infinity, and thanks to Deepak Chopra and a few other people, I know all about it, right? And that's what I want. I want more of that. So I'm going to have to look at what I have been entertaining with the loving attention of my mind and calling into form through law. So, right, we have this thing that says you must recognize that you're one with it and make a conscious connection. And then we're saying this thing has two parts. It's love and law. We're also saying that you are the microcosm of all of it. Each one of us is a genesis constantly going on. Each one of us is constantly participating in the next creation by means of our thought and our word, if you will, activating the law. So we've got that. Now, there's more still. And boy, I'm so excited about everything I have to share with you. Okay, so we look around in nature and we see all of these things being demonstrated that are constants, that are measurable, that are duplicable, right? You could take any one of these things and put it in a lab, and isolate it and watch it happen over and over and over again and prove it, right? Well, we're talking about principles that are that constant. That's what we were just looking at. They are constant. What it means is that we can count on them. We can count on them. They will be there for us. This is how Spirit, God Creator, is there for us. And that close, nearer than our neck vein, closer than our hands and feet. That's how Spirit shows up for us. So we're in this relationship that we can count on. So we use these things deliberately for specific ends. Now here's where I'm going to talk to you about fire. I shared this one other time, sometime last year, that part of my training for a career that I used to have was to spend a couple days, only 2 by the way, at the Broward Fire Academy. I did not become a firefighter. I remember I posted a picture on Facebook because I was so excited, and someone said, "Oh, how wonderful that you're really putting your life on the line every day for all of us." And I said, "I'm really not, but thank you for sharing." So in this school, because I can only find metaphors in everything that I'm doing, no matter what it is. I remember a while back I told you I found a CPR metaphor, for a Sunday talk. So this one is how fire is created. Fire is created with 3 elements. First of all, there is ignition. And you'll see why this sounds familiar. Second of all, there's fuel. And third of all, there's oxygen. So if you want to put a fire out, remove at least one of those. Because beyond ignition is the possibility for reignition. Remove the fuel. Cut off the air supply. If you'd like to prevent a fire, consider not keeping those 3 elements in close proximity so they can connect and start and connect and make a cycle, create a cycle. Does this sound anything like the creative power of thought? I think it does. So here's a little Girl Scout, Boy Scout camping, fire building lesson. I grew up in the country, and I learned how to do this even though I wasn't a Girl Scout. I just, lived in the apple orchard and in the forest all the time. And I learned how to make a nice fire. Now what you do is you gather up, all of your kindling, and you assemble it in such a way that it's going to have, you've got the fuel, right, and some breathing room, and then you ignite it, and then you fan the flames, and you tend it for a while, and it'll get nice and big real fast, right? That could be the difference between you and having a hot meal or being warm enough or not. So what if you do this with an idea? An idea. The ignition is, oh, yes, I'd love to do that. And then you gather up all the fuel, which would be the feelings and the emotions which support it. And you stack them all up. And you've ignited this with this idea. You can see it in its full form. Oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to eat up my soup, or I'm going to be able to warm my hands, or whatever it is that you have in mind. You see it and you ignite it, right? And then what do? You fan the flames. You make sure it's got plenty of space, all of the conditions it needs to work perfectly. Plenty of oxygen. And it'll go. It'll happen. That's great. That is working with a set of principles that will work the same way for anybody on this planet at any time. There are no exceptions. No one is left out, right? Now what can happen is that we fall in love with an idea and stack up that kindling and that fuel of emotions and feelings that support that idea, and we've made up a big story, and we can see the whole picture just fully fleshed out as this major drama. And then what have we done? We've fanned the flames. Maybe we've emailed everybody, we've called everybody, we've told everybody we know, oh, this terrible thing is happening. What do we get? The same set of principles. The same set of principles. We have built that fire. We ignited it with our thought. We fueled it with our feelings and our emotions. And we blew on it by telling everybody we could think of. And now it's real. What can we do? We can go back and remove any one of those elements. And we can put that fire out. The same principle that causes something to show up in our lives that we don't want is the one that we can use to create what we do want. It's so much more relatable when you move from the pages of like a textbook to, oh yeah, I know about that because I've been camping and I've tried and I've smothered my fire. Okay, so we get it. So we have these principles. This is the same as the creative power of thought. This is the same as the creative power of thought. So if there is a fire of passion and purpose, a picture of a desired outcome that you have in your mind and you are in love with it, let yourself say yes to that love and fall in love with it and follow it. Kindle it, ignite it, fan it. That's spiritual practice. We do it unconsciously all the time with what we don't want in the way that I just described. The same principles can give us the life that we do want by using them in another way. And what was the key? It was knowledge and understanding to the point where when you set out to create that thing, you already knew how it all worked, and you used it according to the way that it worked, and it worked for you. It gave you what that set of principles could give you. This is true of all life. It's true about electricity, it's true about fire, it's true about water, it is true about money, it is true about love, it is true about success, it is true about fulfillment, it's true about happiness, it's true about everything. So there's that. Now I tried to take a few breaks this week and just watch a little something to sort of rest my brain and focus on something else. And each time we sat down, I guess what we select might have something to do with it. Watched a TED Talk, which had everything to do with what I'm saying. And it was very interesting. This Brene Brown, I'm a late bloomer. I just discovered her, and she's obviously been around for quite some time. Okay, and Oprah's really hot on Brene Brown right now. Brene Brown spent over 6 years as a research social scientist, interviewing people and gathering all this data and putting it all out there. And what she discovered is that the only difference between people who do experience love and belonging and people who do not experience love and belonging is their belief in their worthiness of it. All that research, and it wasn't spiritual mumbo jumbo, it was science, said belief in worthiness was the difference. So belief, this does not happen between our ears. It happens with knowing and understanding and conviction and total embodiment down to our toenails. That's what makes the dreams come true. You cannot affirm it away. I don't care how many affirmations you have stuck to every surface that you look at or glance at throughout the day. If your underlying belief is something different, that's what manifests. Everybody who's in the Shortcut to a Miracle class knows, because we just learned this last week, the dominant belief is the one that manifests. That'll tell you what kind of fire you're really creating. One that is constructive of what you desire in your life, or destructive of the very things that you treasure. So this is not only getting you to be in unity with that which made you and offers, infinite possibility, but with yourself. Because if you're thinking one thing and feeling another, you will just have friction, confusion, and mayhem. Okay, so there's another piece that I learned while I was looking for, a little mental distraction, and that was yesterday. It's so funny. Again, our selection, has something to do with it. I was watching Dr. Gary Simmons, who specializes, and he has a doctorate in church life, for lack of a better term. How we do this. How we can do this really well, how we can do this in a new way that's really meaningful. And I'm really interested in that. And we're really dedicated to co-creating something that's new like that. Just like the concept of marriage has had the paradigm has had to be redefined to accommodate how much we've grown and our path of self-actualization. So he teaches us about how to do this, this Sunday through Saturday thing together in a new way. And he learned about this training called holacracy, which I believe has to do with the holographic universe concept, that we're all part of the whole together. And this little thing about accountability. And what he says is that anybody that you work with and have a working partnership with, be it a spouse, a co-worker, a teammate, you want to do this little exercise. I'm going to go away and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say, these are the 3 things, or however many things, that I count on you for. And then I'm going to take a wild guess at what the things are that you count on me for. And then we're going to sit together and compare notes, and you're going to go, really? Or whatever the case may be. You will achieve clarity, you'll demystify, and you'll be able to have a relationship that is really authentic and powerful. Because when we talk about the creative power of all that is, and we're talking about how it moves through our thought with feeling and emotion and generates experience and results that way. When we talk about that, we're talking about a relationship. Okay? So the relationship is this. We're saying that we look around in nature, we look around in all of creation, and we discover what we can count on. Okay? We discover what we can count on. Those are constants that we see demonstrated all around us. Those are called principles all around us, and we can use them. And those are the things that we call laws. So if I were to sit with God as I understand God, however I would like to address that entity, I'd say, okay, God, so I understand that I can count on you, and I do, for the following. That I will be inspired in some way by something that you've put within me. And that when I act on that inspiration with my thought and my feeling and my word and my deed, there is something about you and all that is that will respond to that perfectly and produce accordingly. That's what I count on you for. Okay. So maybe what Spirit counts on us for is that we will recognize that inspiration and we'll take the leap and act on it. And we'll activate the law and create something new that'll be marvelous and wonderful if we say yes. But the other part that we get to add to this, because we're free, is trust. We get to add that element to this relationship by choosing to trust it. And the way that we can build that trust is by looking out there and saying, I see constants everywhere. I see infinity everywhere, right? The grains of sand, the leaves on the tree, the blades of grass, all of that. I see infinity. I see order. I see magnificence. I see possibility. And I'm here too, so that must be here for me somewhere. So the whole point to getting what we desire is to recognize that we can count on these principles. And they're built into us. Love and law are built into us. They're built into us to be inspired and to fall in love with an idea. And then to speak about it and feel about it and act on it and to believe in it more and more and more. And for that to be an activation of something that causes it to show up as form, as circumstance, as experience, every time. Every time. So we can count on that. So there's one quote from Ernest Holmes, and I don't even need to look at it. He just says that love points the way, and law makes the way possible. And if we walk out of this room today remembering that, we'll know everything we need to know. We're one with it. We consciously connect with it, because if we didn't, it wouldn't be by choice. And if it weren't by choice, we wouldn't be free. And if we didn't do that, it wouldn't be authentic. It'd be somebody else's experience. This is the deal, the agreement in our relationship with our Creator, is that the sky's the limit to infinity and beyond, as Buzz Lightyear said. There's no limit to what we can experience. The key is for us to recognize that the power is in here, not out there. It's in inspiration, and it's in the responsiveness of the universe in which we live. So I invite you to take any of those analogies with you today. I like the fire one myself. And play with them. They apply to your life today, right now. They apply to your experience today, right now. And if you've ever had that moment where you thought, this stuff doesn't work, just remember it has to get from here in the head down to here in the heart, in the body, and it will. Because it can't not work. It's inevitable. And so is the gift that awaits you. Thank you.